Okay. Raja Uvacha.
Raja Uvacha.
Na te gurakesha yashodharana. Sorry, excuse me. I'll repeat that. Na te gurakesha yashodharanam.
Nate Gudakesha Yashodharanam.
Baddhanjaler vaibhayam asti kinchit.
Baddhanjalir vaibhayamasti kinchit.
न वर्तित्वयं भवता कथाञ्चन
Navartitavyam bhavata kathanchana.
क्षेत्रे मदीये त्वमधर्मबन्धुः
Kshetre madiye tvamadharma bandhu.
राजो उवाच
Raja Uvacha.
न ते गुडाकेश यशोधारणाम्
Nate Gudakesha Yashodharanam.
बद्धाञ्जलिर्वैभयमस्ति किञ्चित्
Baddhanjalir vaibhayamasti kinchit.
न वर्तित्वयं भवता कथाञ्चन
Navartitavyam bhavata kathanchana.
क्षेत्रे मदीये त्वमधर्मबन्धुः
Kshetre madiye tvamadharma bandhu.
राजो उवाच
Raja Uvacha.
न ते गुडाकेश यशोधराणाम्
Nate Gudakesha Yashodharanam.
बद्धाञ्जलिर्वैभयमस्ति किञ्चित्
Baddhanjalir vaibhayamasti kinchit.
न वर्तित्वयं भवता कथाञ्चन
Navartitavyam bhavata kathanchana.
क्षेत्रे मदीये त्वमधर्मबन्धुः
Kshetre madiye tvamadharma bandhu. Raja Uvacha.
राजोवाच
Nate Gudakesha Yashodharanam.
नते गुडाकेश यशोधराणाम्
Baddhanjalir vaibhayamasti kinchit.
बद्धाञ्जलिर्वैभयमस्ति किञ्चित्
Navartitavyam bhavata kathanchana.
न वर्तितव्यं भवता कथाञ्चन
Kshetre madiye tvamadharma bandhu.
क्षेत्रे मदीये त्वमधर्मबन्धुः Raja Uvacha.
Raja Uvacha.
The king said,
The king said,
Na,
Na,
not.
not.
Te,
Te,
your.
your.
Gudakesha,
Gudakesha,
Arjuna.
Arjuna.
Yashaha, Yashaha Dharanam,
Dharanam.
Yashaha Dharanam. Of us who inherited the fame.
Of us who inherited the fame.
Baddha Anjalehe,
Baddha Anjalehe.
one with folded hands.
One with folded hands.
Why?
Vai,
Certainly.
certainly.
Bhayam,
Bhayam,
fear.
fear.
Asti,
Asti,
there is.
there is.
Kinchit,
Kinchit,
even a slight.
even a slight.
Na,
No,
neither.
neither.
Vartitavyam,
Vartitavyam,
can be allowed to live.
can be allowed to live.
Bhavata,
Bhavata,
by you.
by you.
Kathanchana,
Kathanchana,
by all means.
by all means.
Kshetre,
Kshetre,
in the land.
in the land.
Madiye,
Madiye,
in my kingdom.
in my kingdom.
Tvam,
Tvam,
you.
you.
Adharma bandhuhu,
Adharma bandhuhu,
the friend of irreligion.
the friend of your religion.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada ki.
Jai.
Translation. The king thus said, We have inherited the fame of Arjuna. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life. But you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of irreligion. Purport. The personality of Kali, who is a friend of all kinds of irreligiosities, may be excused if he surrenders, but in all circumstances, he cannot be allowed to live as a citizen in any part of a welfare state. The Pandavas were entrusted representatives of the personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, who practically brought into being the battle of Kurukshetra, but not for any personal interest. He wanted an ideal king like Maharaj Yudhishthir and his descendants like Maharaj Parikshit to rule the world. And therefore, a responsible king like Maharaj Parikshit could not allow the friend of irreligiosity to flourish in his kingdom at the cost of the good fame of the Pandavas. That is the way of wiping out corruption in the state, and not otherwise. The friends of irreligiosity should be banished from the state, and that will save the state from corruption. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमां विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिधि नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषशून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you for joining today's class, dear devotees. Chanakya Pandit says, Ayushakshana ekopi na labhya swarna koti vihi. He says, no amount of money ever bought a second of time. And I thank you all for giving me your valuable time. I hope the right words come at the right time in the glorification of Srimad Bhagavatam, and you have some takeaways from today's class. In today's verse, just from the words that have been spoken, there are some very interesting takeaways. In first, every time Arjuna or Krishna have been referred to, whether it's in the Bhagavad Gita or in the Srimad Bhagavatam, very specific name has been used. So here we see Gudakesh has been used, which means he's the conqueror of sleep. We see in many places in the Bhagavad Gita, Pritha, son of Pritha, Partha, son of Pritha is being used. Dhananjaya, winner of wealth, is being called. Sometimes Krishna calls Arjuna as the one who's ambidextrous, and there are many such names given. And in this instance, Gudakesh is very apt, and it has been used to convey, or for Parikshit Maharaj to convey that he was in the descendant of the Pandavas, especially Arjuna, because Gudakesh is conqueror of sleep, but also conqueror of ignorance and darkness. So one who has conquered this ignorance and darkness and the tamas guna, he is also Gudakesh, one who has conquered that. So it's a very particular use of that word. And we see that Yashodharanam, Yashodharanam, the one who he has inherited the fame of Arjuna. Now, one interesting thing, as we see in the purport itself, as Prabhupada has said, and as we know the facts, it was Maharaj Yudhishthir who was the king, and Parikshit Maharaj was enthroned by Yudhishthir Maharaj. It is not Arjuna who was on the throne. But here we see Parikshit Maharaj offering or saying Yashodharanam to Gudakesh, not to Maharaj Yudhishthir, which is an interesting nuance. I mean, it may be like very clear that he was a grandson of Arjuna, so he is just calling out to Arjuna. But it's actually very particular use of Gudakesh in this case, even though he had inherited the kingdom from Maharaj Yudhishthir. And that is because of the four regulative principles that we will see in verse 38 and 39 of this chapter, when Kali asks for some shelter, and he asks for few, and Maharaj Parikshit offers him places where the four regulative principles are broken. But one interesting thing here is that Arjuna is being used here because Arjuna has clearly not broken any of the four regulative principles. We see Maharaj Yudhishthir gambling, which breaks one of the four regulative principles, but he did that because he promised Narada Muni that he would adhere to the words of the elders, and that's why he took part in that game of gambling, as Dhritarashtra had kind of forced him into. But if you see the case of Arjuna, he had that spotless character, because when we talk about gambling, obviously he did not gamble. And if you say, let's say, meat eating, they had the Akshay Patra, which gave them unlimited food in the forest, so there was no need, or there was no emergency situation where they had to consume meat. And then we come to intoxication. Where would you find intoxication? In the forest? You wouldn't find it there. And then illicit sex is the most important thing that we can learn from Arjuna, because when he had gone to Indra's abode, that is when he was in Indra's you can say cabinet, and then there were a lot of apsaras who were performing their dance, and Arjuna had a very special eye for Urvashi. And Indra, he saw it. He saw that Arjuna is, maybe he fancies her. And so when they went back, in the evening, he told Urvashi that Dhananjaya, Partha, he has a fancy for you. He looks at you a certain way. And Urvashi herself tells him, actually, Prabhupada himself tells and mentions in a purport that if someone were to look at a woman with an unchaste eye, they can actually feel it. They can actually perceive that this person is potential danger for us. And similarly, Urvashi claims to say, "Yes, I have noticed that, and I wanted to, talk to you about going to him." And Indra said, "Well, both of our wishes are in alignment. Please go to Arjuna." That's what Indra tells Urvashi. And Urvashi, as the um, Mahabharata says, she came in diaphanous clothes, which defeats the purpose of clothing. Clothing is to cover the body. She comes in diaphanous clothing, which is basically transparent, in front of Arjuna. And she knocks on his door and comes in. And Arjuna cannot help but look down, and he offers his hands to her and says, "I only see you as my grandmother or mother, so to speak." And she is completely insulted by that. How can you call me, who I've come to you, I've kind of surrendered to you, and how can you call me a mother? And that's when he tells, you have been married to my forefather Pururava, and that is why I can only see you as mother. So he had the opportunity, the license, and also in the heavenly abode there is a lot more license for sense gratification. So it wouldn't have been illicit sex per se, but he was still willing to adhere to dharma, and as a result he was able to see her as mother. And obviously he got cursed by her. They say hell hath no fury, but in this case heaven hath no fury. So he got cursed by Urvashi to be a eunuch, and he accepted it. And interestingly, when he was a eunuch teaching Uttara, who is the daughter of King Virat, even there was a marriage proposal given to him. King Virat, after he got to know that this eunuch was actually Arjuna in a certain curse or disguise, and at that time he offered his daughter's hand to Arjuna. But Arjuna, again, he had the opportunity, but he said, "I saw her as my daughter, and I can get her married to Abhimanyu, but I will not marry her." So he had that, strong moral compass to not succumb to illicit sex desires. And that is the Dharana, that is the fame that he has bequeathed or inherited. And that is the first sentence of the uh, verse. So the king thus said, "We have inherited the fame of Arjuna. Therefore, since you have surrendered yourself with folded hands, you need not fear for your life, but you cannot remain in my kingdom, for you are the friend of irreligion." Now, Hari Prasad Prabhu generally likes to quote from the Subhashitas, which are you could say, certain verses that previous Purva Acharyas have allowed to propagate, which are like words of advice. In that, there's a very interesting one, which says, uh, "Vajradapi kathoram, kusumadapi sukomalam." One who is as strong as a thunderbolt, but simultaneously as soft as a flower, lotus flower. That person is the rarest and the best of leaders. So here we see Parikshit Maharaj embodying this proverb to the best ability. He has the compassion that Kali himself has surrendered to him, and he's willing to accept that surrender. So he's soft hearted in that sense, but he's still adherent to Dharma. Here he says, you are the friend of irreligion, but you cannot remain in my kingdom. He's steadfast in his principles. So he's simultaneously compassionate, like a soft like a flower. He has a heart that is as soft as a flower, but also a heart that is vajradapi kathoram. Kathor is strong. You could say uh, unpenetrable, impenetrable. Sorry. And as a result, he is known as a top tier leader. He's simultaneously both, and we see many examples of Prabhupada. I specifically wanted to take out two examples from what I've been hearing recently. One example is from Following Prabhupada, which is a series of 11 videos where devotees actually have video footage of them with Prabhupada or throughout the entire 11 or 12 years when Prabhupada was there. And then they themselves give their own testimony about what happens in the video. And in one part, if I remember correctly, it was in London, in the mansion provided by George Harrison, where it was a very familial atmosphere, and all the devotees were very, very happy. And it was a day of Ekadashi, and there were a lot of devotees who had come to the temple, and many who were already staying there, and everybody had a very, very long day. Like they were cooking for all the devotees, and it was almost like midnight at that point, and all the devotees were very hungry, and Prabhupada was also tired because he was like they had festivities the entire day, and at the end they wanted to honor some yogurt and some other dishes that were made from using the same yogurt. And at that point they all sat down on a plate, and it was like a big huge family sitting in a large, like how we had 10 devotees sitting here during Bhakti Sangha, but they had hundreds, probably hundreds, I'm not sure about the number. And they were going to honor the yogurt and all the prasadam. But then somebody from the kitchen came and told that the yogurt actually has cornstarch, so you cannot honor that on Ekadashi. And at that time, it could have. It seems like a party pooper situation, right? Like somebody came and comes and spoils the party, because now they will not be able to honor anything per se at that point in time. But Prabhupada said, yes, we have all come here, we have all worked hard today, we have performed our austerities. Today we can honor this. It is all right, we're not fanatics. That's what Prabhupada said. So this is not a license for us to eat cornstarch per se. But at that time, Prabhupada knew that everybody have given their very best on a day of Ekadashi. They've given their austerities, and it is apt that he can be a little bit soft in this situation. So that very particular time, he allowed that to happen. And another time when he was Vajradapi Kathoram, obviously we know building of the Juhu temple, there are many such situations. One recently, I was listening to a class that Shuddhakirti Prabhu had given in GEV, and he was talking about how he would massage Prabhupada. And one time he got a little carried away, and he thought that maybe Prabhupada might like a certain type of massage, and he started massaging differently. And Prabhupada got really angry, took the newspaper or some paper that was here, and kind of hit Shrutakirti Prabhu and said, "You must follow orders. Don't be a fool." And some very strong words at that point in time for something Shrutakirti Prabhu at that time thought was very minor. I mean, I just massaged a little differently. How can that be incorrect? And then as he was and as he reverted back to his earlier massage procedure, he realized that this is exactly what sadhana bhakti is about. We try to go off track on our own without adhering to what the shastras and what the guru is saying. And that is exactly what Prabhupada is showing me. I try to go off track a little bit, thinking, oh, this is my bhav and this is me becoming more independent per se. But Prabhupada gave me the instruction that I must come back to what my original position as servant was, to serve what the master has asked me to. And so he comes back there. So these were just two contrasting examples when Prabhupada was, as a leader, he was both Vajradapi Kathoram and Kusumadapi, Komalam, soft as a flower. In this purport, we also see there's one interesting thing that I remembered about the metaphor of a jail. So we've been talking a lot about how the material world is a jail, but one very interesting thing you can think about is in the material world there are a lot of jails, but there's not a single jail from which nobody has escaped. Like even Shawshank prison house, there's like people who have escaped that prison as well. There's a religious movie named Shawshank Redemption, which has a lot of symbolism in it about escaping the prison. And it is very interesting to note that there are people who know it is incorrect to escape. They still try their best to escape. They get caught and they get put back again, and they don't change much. That is the jails in the material world. But if you see, the material world itself is actually the prison house that the Lord has created. And here, there is no gates blocking people from going away. And in fact, there are people who are willing to let you know through the words of Srimad Bhagavatam and other literatures how to get out of this jail. all avenues are available. People are willing to tell you how to get out. People are trying. Some people are even pushing you to get out, but people do not want to get out. That's the difference in the two jails. Here, people assume that all of these material desires are this is the avenue for me to fulfill all of the material desires, and as a result, they shackle themselves rather than escaping. So it goes to draw a like comparison study between the jail in the material world and how the material world itself is actually the jail. And Radheshyam Prabhu in one class, he mentions about how there was a Brahmana who wanted to meet the king, and it's kind of an allegory, or you can say yeah, it's an allegory. So he says that the Brahmana came to the palace to meet the king, and the minister told him that there are four doors here, and you need to use one of these doors to go to the king, meet the king. And the first door he opens is a room where illicit sex was made prevalent for him. He said, "I'm a Brahmana. This is not for me," and he left. The next door, he saw there was meat, and he says, "Okay, this is not my cup of tea." He left. And then he goes to the third one, and he sees there's intoxication. He offers his pranam to the bottle of liquor, and he goes to the last one, and he sees that it's a gambling house, and he thinks, well, this is the only door left for me. The other three are clearly not designed for me. Maybe let me just gamble a little bit. And so he went ahead, he gambled, he earned some money, and then he got even more intoxicated. He earned even more money. And once he had a lot of money, he thought, well, I wanted to meet the king to get some money for myself, to sustain myself as a Brahmana. Now that I have a lot of money, maybe it wouldn't hurt to enjoy a little bit. So he goes to the next room, takes some intoxication, and then he's like, well, I'm already intoxicated, so might as well. And he ate the meat, and he's like, okay, well, there's only one more thing left. And he engaged in illicit connections. And as a result, he never got to meet the king, because the minister told him that you have failed in all four, not just one. You failed in all four, so you cannot go meet the king. And this is exactly what is happening, as we will see. When Kali asks for something, he asks for something that is the root cause. He doesn't he When the four avenues that he asked for were not present in Parikshit Maharaj's kingdom, he asked for wealth. And I think I've mentioned before, Hari Suri mentioned in the Bhakti Rasayanam, that wealth, Srimad, or the intoxication due to wealth, is the only or main reason why the four regulative principles are broken. And he gives the examples of how um, Dasharath Maharaj killed Shravan Kumar with the bow and arrow because he was in a position of wealth, and he had to show that he can hunt animals. So that's meat eating. And then he gives the example of Nalla Kuvera and Manigriva, who were the sons of Kuvera, who had wealth, and that was the reason they were in such an intoxicated state. Then he gives the example of Ravana, who was intoxicated by wealth. As a king, he had a lot of wealth. That's why he behaved inappropriately with uh, the wife of Nalakvera, and also kidnapped Mother Sita. And then he gives the example of uh, meat eating, gambling, intoxication, illicit sex, and what did I miss, bro? Gambling. He gives the example of the Pandavas. He gives the example of Yudhishthir. Only because they had a lot of wealth that they can put on wager, that was the only reason why they were called to the gambling match in the first place. So he lays the same thing that Radheshyam Prabhu was also trying to lay through the allegory, that it is wealth, or the intoxication to wealth, that causes the four regulative principles to be broken. Now, we've been talking about a few topics, but I will come to one topic that I really wanted to cover in today's class, and that was the topic of surrender. And I would like to give the example that we generally don't give, and that's of Vibhishan and how he surrendered to Lord Ram, because he demonstrates all the six limbs of Sharanagati in his surrender to Lord Ram, and it serves as a lesson for us. And it also shows exactly what Parikshit Maharaj is doing, or following the footsteps of. Like, Parikshit Maharaj here accepts the surrender, but he says, "You are not a Dharmatma, so I cannot accept you." And he offers other opportunities for him. But the first thing about Vibhishan is he was reprimanded and he was insulted by Indrajit and Ravana. So what happens is we see Hanuman coming to Lanka, and he was kidnapped by Indrajit's power. So Indrajit has a certain power where he can immobilize any enemy, and as a result, he immobilizes Hanuman. And when Hanuman is presented before the court, uh, he was the only one. So Vibhishan was the only one who told everybody that he should not be killed because Ravana wanted Hanuman to be killed. And Vibhishan was the only one who stood up and told that he should not be killed. He's come as a messenger. The only thing that Shastras allow us to do is to insult him, but we cannot kill him. And that is when Ravana sets fire to the tail of uh, Hanuman, and then we know what happens. So when and then he scolds Ravana. Vibhishan scolds Ravana and telling him to return back Mother Sita. And that time Indrajit and Ravana call him a traitor and tell him that you're not fit to be here. And that's when Vibhishan takes leave. He decides to leave the place. And there are four Rakshasas who accompany Vibhishan. And it's very interesting in the Ramayana as he reached land on the other side, it does not say that he reached land. He said he returned to land. And the acharyas comment that this is because when someone takes asylum to a different country, it's mostly due to better economic prospects or better shelter or other material benefits. This was the first time there was someone who came to another country seeking asylum for the ultimate good, to take shelter of the Supreme Lord. He came to take asylum because there was adharma in his country, and he came to take the shelter of someone who follows dharma or a king who follows dharma. This was the first time somebody had come to take such a form of asylum. And as a result, the Shastras also say he returned to the he returned to the land, not he arrived there. And the Shastras say, and the commentators say that it's because he returned to where he's supposed to be. That's the reason why Srila Prabhupada named his book. He didn't say go to Godhead, he says go back to Godhead. Similarly, the returning of Vibhishan to land, it doesn't say he arrived, it clearly says he returned because he was returning to the lotus feet of Lord Ram, where he was supposed to, or always he was supposed to be there from the very beginning. And when he came there, Vibhishan was his first encounter along with the four Rakshasas who accompanied him, who were his friends. Um, it was Sugriva and all the other monkeys who were waiting with stones and tree barks ready to kind of beat him. They thought that he was coming there to cause some disunity among the army, so that they lose the war, or because they knew that Lord Ram is going to come to Lanka. So their initial assumption was he's come here to cause some problems. So let's deal with the problem before it gets too far. And at that time, I have not memorized the verse that he says, but he introduces himself with complete honesty. He tells him, I am the brother of Ravana, who is Viprita Buddhi. He's the one who I gave him good advice, but he did the exact opposite, and he's relentless. He is unwilling to change himself, and it is my great misfortune that I have to call myself his younger brother, which I do not want to, and that is why I've come here seeking shelter. So the words he says is Sarva Loka Sharanyaya Raghavaya Mahatmane. He says, the one who's a shelter, Sarva Loka Sharanyaya, one who's a shelter for everybody in all the lokas, Raghavaya Mahatmane. To that Raghava, Lord Ram, who's the greatest of all Atmas, I have come. And then he says, I have this disadvantage in me that I am the youngest brother of Ravana, and time is really testing his intellect. Everything, yeah, becomes the opposite of he does the exact opposite of everything I say. And I have taken a resolve. I have abandoned my children and my wife, and I come to seek asylum at the lotus feet of Lord Ram. That is what Vibhishan demonstrates and shows. And Sugriva and all of the Varnaras are actually a little stunned by what they hear. They thought he's coming here to create problems, but he said something very astonishing. So they go back, and he requests them to tell Ram that Vibhishan has come. And Vibhishan knows that Lord Ram does not know that Vibhishan even exists. So he goes there, and Sugriva goes there and tells the other Vanaras and tells Lord Ram that Vibhishan is here. And then he's brought close by. And at that time, Ram asks the Vanaras, each of them, what do you say? Do you think we should accept him or not? He has come, he says, Raghavaya Mahatmane Sarvaloka Sharanyaya. He's saying he's come to take shelter of me. Should we accept him or not? And at that time, um, he asks each. So Jambavan was the eldest, and Jambavan says, "No, we must not accept him. He's come at the wrong time. He knows that we are going to wage a war, and he's come here to create some disunity. He's come at the wrong time, and he's a traitor to his own brother. There's no reason why he will not be a traitor to us as well, because one who has been a traitor to somebody else has shown that he cannot be trusted. So we must not trust him." And all the other Vanaras were willing to be in alignment with what Jambavan was saying. And then Lord Ram turns to Hanuman, because Hanuman was the only, you could say, foreign return or expat who went to Lanka and came back. So he asks Hanuman, "What do you think, Hanuman?" And then Hanuman bows down in front of Lord Ram and says, "You are the one who's the greatest of all speakers. What can I possibly say in front of you?" And then he says, since you've ordered me, I will tell you everything I know about Vibhishan. He starts off by saying Vibhishan is not a bad person. He does not say he's a good person, but he says he's not a bad person. And then he substantiates his claims by saying he was the only one in the court of Ravana who followed dharma, who told that anybody who's come as a dhuta or as a messenger should not be killed. He upheld dharma in that position at that point in time. And then he tells, when I was setting fire to everybody's home in Lanka, I saw Vibhishan's home, and he had Ram written on all of the walls. And the actual reason that when Ravana came to Vibhishan's house and saw Ram written everywhere, he was angry, and he asked um, Vibhishan, "Why have you written my enemy's name on your walls?" And that time Vibhishan tells him, "This is not your Lord Ram. These are the first two syllables of you and your wife." He says Ra is for Ravana and Ma is for Mandodari. You are my worshipable deities, he tells Ravana. That's why I have written Ram on all of the walls. But the real reason is he knew Ram is the Paramatma, and that's why Ram was written on all of his walls. And Hanuman tells him, when I went to set fire on everybody's house except Vibhishana's house, because I saw the name of Lord Ram was written on it. And then he concludes by saying that he has abandoned his family, his children, everything, riches, everything to come here, and he's come at the right time, because we are in a disadvantageous position, because we don't know how to cross the ocean, but he has crossed the ocean and he's come here. So he's actually a very big advantage for us, and that is why he's a good person. We must accept him. And that is when Lord Ram tells all of the Vanaras, even if he was an enemy in disguise, I would accept him. And um, and then Lord Ram says his famous verse, Sakradeva prapanno yastabasmiti chayachate abhayam sarvada tasmai dadami ete vratam mama. Okay, actually, I forgot to tell one thing before that. Before he said this verse, Lord Ram gives 4 proofs of why he must accept Vibhishan's surrender. The first proof is what we heard when we were at Yosemite from uh, what is the proof's name? No, the Odia Devotia. How can I forget his name? Okay. Rupak Prabhu, yeah. Rupak Prabhu, as Rupak Prabhu was saying, this is what Kandu Rishi had mentioned, and Lord Ram quotes him, and he says that there was actually a bird, and there was a hunter who saw a male and a female bird on the tree, and he shot an arrow and killed the female bird. I mean, he hit the female bird fell down and died, and he took that bird and ate the meat of that bird, the hunter. And in the evening, he came back to the same tree, and he was hungry, but he didn't say anything. The male bird was still on the tree, and he set a fire to warm himself. But the bird knew that he has come to take shelter of this tree, and the bird purposely fell in the fire and got cooked. And as a result, what happened was that hunter got to eat the meat of that bird. And Lord Ram tells, if I do not give surrender to Vibhishan, it would be exactly what it would be a big black spot on our Yashodharana, on whatever fame I have taken from my previous generations. And he says why, by saying that, uh, he says Ravana kidnapped Mother Sita, and here this hunter has killed the bird. Ravana has not even killed Mother Sita; he kidnapped, and the male bird, was willing to give itself completely to the hunter. And if I don't even accept Vibhishan who's come to me, then people will say that the bird is more merciful than Lord Ram. So I will accept the shelter of Lord Ram. Then he gives a second example. He gives a second example of a tiger chasing a brahmana. And he has heard this as well. And Lord Ram quotes it. He says there was a tiger who was chasing a brahmana. The brahmana knew that if he would climb a tree, the tiger would not be able to climb, because only leopards generally climb the tree. So he went up the tree, and to his right, to his dismay, he saw there was a bear seated right next to him. And he thought, okay, now I'm going to be food for the bear. And but then the bear told him, I am not going to eat you. You've come to take shelter of my tree, or the tree where I reside. So you've come to my home as a guest. Obviously, I will not eat you. And then after that, the bear tells the brahmana that I will take rest for maybe 6 hours. You take rest for 6 hours, and then we will alternate. So we'll keep an eye on the tiger. So as when the tiger leaves, you can go your way. So first the brahmana sleeps for 6 hours, and then the bear keeps watch. Then after that, the bear takes rest, and the brahmana is keeping watch. And he sees the tiger and thinks, actually, it's just that the tiger is hungry. Maybe if it eats the bear's meat, it might let me go. And so he pushes the bear down the tree, and the bear falls down. And then the tiger looks at the bear, and the bear tells the tiger something, and the tiger tells something to the bear. And then the bear comes on the tree. And then the brahmana is afraid now. Okay, now I, I broke the trust of the bear. So the bear is going to push me now. And there's no way he can escape the bear's push. So he asks the bear, why have you not pushed me yet? And that time the bear tells him that, again, he tells the same thing. You have come to take shelter of my tree. So I will not push you down. And he asked, what did the tiger tell you then? Or what did you tell the tiger? So he told, the tiger asked me to go up the tree and push the brahmana. So I came up the tree, but I will not push you because you've taken shelter of my tree. And the Lord Ram tells again, if I don't take Vibhishan's surrender, it would mean that the bear is even more merciful than me. Then he gives a third example of Shibi Chakravarti. He's very famous for his merciful nature. He sees that a small partridge is chased by a hawk, and the partridge, or small bird, comes to the shelter of Shibi and surrenders to Shibi. So Shibi says, I will give you protection. And then he sees the hawk. It's a big hawk. And the hawk tells him that is my prey. It is my dharma or duty that I can eat it. So you need to give that to me. And Shibi Chakravarti, he says, this bird has taken shelter of me, so I cannot, give it up. But I will scoop out equivalent weight of flesh from my thigh that weighs equivalent to that of the bird, and he offers that amount of flesh to the hawk. So he says, again, Lord Ram says, again, it would mean that Shibi is even more merciful than me. And the final example that Lord Ram gives is of Shiva drinking the halal poison that was from the churning of the ocean. He says, when the Amrit came, everybody showed their hands for a share of the Amrit. But when the poison came, nobody else came forward. And it was Lord Shiva who came for the protection of everybody else. That's the reason. And it's kind of a surrender that Lord Shiva did. He did it for the benefit of everybody. So as a result, even if Vibhishan, who comes to me, is an enemy, I will still accept him. And then he says, the verse Sakradeva Prapanoyas Tabasmiti Chayachate Abhayam Sarvada Tasmai Dadami Etat Vatam Mama. And the Acharyas, they say that in the CC 2200, the 6 limbs of Sharanagati, and then they match it every word to what Vibhishan has done. So it's Anukulesya Sankalpa, Patikulesya Varjanam, Rakshishiti iti Vishwaso, Koptutva Varnam Tatha, Atmanikshepa Karpanye, Shadvida Sharanagati. These are the 6 Sharanagatis. And then they do the match the following that you would have in any of your exams. So for Anukulesya Sankalpa, what we would generally do is chanting, Patikulesya Varjanam, following the 4 regs, giving up what is unfavorable. And so in comparison, what Vibhishan had done was Anukulesya Sankalpa is doing what is favorable and what pleases the Lord. So what the Acharyas say is he spoke dharma, words of dharma to Ravana. Whether Ravana heard it or not is a different story, but he was willing to speak it. And at the time when Hanuman was there, everyone wanted Hanuman to be killed, but Vibhishan was the only one who, again, as I mentioned, he was the only one who relented and who stood up and told, no, he's come as a messenger, he cannot be killed. So that is Anukulesya Sankalpa. Patikulesya Varjanam is what he gave up. He gave up many things that were unfavorable. He gave up the company of Ravana, who was his brother. He gave up all the riches. He gave up his family. He gave up his children. He gave up his home. He gave up everything. Patikulesya Varjanam. So he demonstrated the second limb of Sharanagati as well. The third limb of Sharanagati is Goptrutva Varnam. Rakshishyati iti Vishwaso. Having the firm faith. The emphasis is not on having faith in the Shastra or the Supreme Lord. The emphasis is on having the firmness in the faith. And that's exactly what Prabhupada has translated it as well in the CC. He talks about, he says, in being guardian like Father Varanam acceptance, Rakshishiti, he will protect. Varjanam is complete rejection. Vishvasaha is strong conviction. That's what Prabhupada translates Vishwa. Vishwas is strong conviction. And it is the strong conviction that he had of Lord Ram. He did not send a message informing that I'm coming. He just came because he knew Lord Ram is the shelter for everybody. And he himself quotes, Sarva Loka Sharanyaya Raghavaya Mahatmane. He himself tells, he's the shelter for everybody. So he really embodied Rakshishati iti Vishwaso. And Goptrutve Varnam Tatha is, he knew Raghavaya Sharanam. He knew that he is my only protector and maintainer. So he came there. And then Karpanyam is humility. He had nothing to offer. He came empty-handed. So he offered himself completely to the Supreme Lord, as similar to what Bali Maharaj did as well. And then Atma Samarpanam is he gave himself completely. And the way we look at it is Anukulesya Sankalpa is chanting, Pratikulesya Varjanam are following the 4 regs to the highest ability, not just the gross level, but at the subtle level as well. How pride is a form of intoxication, and speaking harsh words is a form of meat eating, and even at the subtle level. Rakshishiti iti Vishwaso is having Utsahan Nischayat Dhairyat, having that at the highest level. Goptrutve Varnam Tatha is knowing that the Supreme Lord is my only shelter. So when we offer obeisances, we show both of those, the Goptrutve, the Karpanyam and Atma Samarpanam. Those two are shown when we offer obeisances, because ideally when we offer obeisances, our feet are together to show that we have no other place to go to. It's not like we have a 4 or 5 options and we're giving this opportunity for Krishna to accept my surrender. No, we close our legs to show we have no other way to go. Agati, we have no other place to go, and we come there. And then when we fold our arms, it's out of humility because we have nothing to offer but ourselves. That's why we don't go like this, giving something to Krishna. There's nothing that we can offer except our self completely. So that those are the 6 limbs of surrender that one would ideally take to the fullest level throughout their entire lifetime to achieve the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. Okay, we are a little over time, so I think I will stop here. Thank you for attending today's class. If there's any corrections, any reflections that anybody would like to share, I'm more than happy to. Let's stop here.
Much love to Vishal.